Hello, Penguins fans. Welcome back to another episode for this podcast. We finally have some news to discuss. Danton Heinen is officially back for the Penguins, a one-year, $1 million contract. And to get into all of my thoughts on that signing, get into his numbers from last year, where I think he's best fit going into next year for the team. And what this means going forward is, I do not think the Penguins are done. And a little later, we're going to get to my top 10 Penguin prospects in their system. I know people have already tweeted at the podcast account that, wow, they actually have 10 prospects. And yeah, but believe it or not, they somehow do, even after winning 3 Stanley Cups in the Sidney Crosby era. But I'm going to go into what my top 10 look like, who could rise, maybe who could fall throughout the next year or two, and, who could potentially make a big impact, or I shouldn't say big impact, but make a decent impact at the NHL level. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at @LNStorePenguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So going into today, I was like, all right, got my top 10 prospects. I'm going to spread it out over 3 segments. Just get a result of that. Maybe do like 3 to 4 per segment. And then a few hours ago, the Penguins, released a press release saying they have re-signed Danton Heinen to a 1-year deal worth $1 million. And yes, that is correct. In case this is the first time you're hearing this, he is only going to be making $1 million next year after he scored 18 goals. This is a $100K decrease in pay to come back on a massive discount to play for the Penguins as they chase their 4th Stanley Cup. Excuse me. In the Sidney Crosby era. Something is wrong with my voice. I don't really understand what, but I don't know. Maybe I've just been speaking too much. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, but to start out, this is a great deal for the Penguins. I mean, I have absolutely no complaints about this. It does make the Pittsburgh captain re-signing feel a little weird because he's making 3.2 for just existing last year, yet Heinen, who scored almost 20 goals, is taking a pay cut to come back. Just a little weird with that. But, Heinen is a great bottom 6 player. I believe of his 18 goals, 15 of them were at 5v5. He was always just, whether it was on Malkin's line, whether it was on the third line with Carter, he sometimes played on the 4th line. He was always making an impact on the ice. He has a beautiful release. Sure, he goes a little bit streaky. He'll kind of, upset some people when he's not finishing chances that he should. About 9 out of 10 times. There are a couple times last year where he missed some wide open nets. He easily could have had 20 if those would have went in. But, you don't score 18 goals in the league by accident. This is a very good bottom 6 winger. You look at Hockey Viz stuff with Micah Blake McCurdy, his isolated impact as of this year, plus 0.2 expected goals for per 60, a whole blob of red right in front of the net. It means he's getting to the high danger areas, a whole blob of red right above the far left circle. That's also a very good area to shoot from. His shot, again, is very good. So plus 8% in terms of there, but in the even strike defense, basically not a lot of red in the defensive zone. There's a whole swab of blue right in the front of the net, which means, he's giving up less expected goals against per 60 than compared to, players that, are bottom 6 wingers, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I made it sound confusing, but he's giving up less chances in those areas compared to the competition. Only little red areas are right around the blue line. So, this is a flat out steal for the Penguins. He should not be making $1 million after what he did this past season. I know Josh Yohe said of The Athletic that he was looking to getting $3 million in arbitration. I guess no one was really offering him that. Though there was a report from Danny Shirey, if I can find the tweet here, said a source told him that Heinen's decision to return to the Penguins came down to taking money out of the picture. He says there are better offers out there, but Heinen felt strongly about staying with the Penguins and winning a Stanley Cup. So that I think is what you're really seeing with a lot of Ron Hextall signings this year. You can also even make this argument for Letang and Malkin, right? Letang, is he worth $6 million right now? Heck no. He's probably worth 7.5 to 8 million. He should have gotten a raise on that contract, but he sacrificed dollars to get more term. Evgeny Malkin, is he worth $6 million? Pretty decent argument, but I would probably argue that he's worth a little bit more than that, considering what he did last year. But, he took a heck of a discount to help the team, and only 12.2 million. Brian Rust, he's making what? 5.1 million. This is a player that easily probably could have gotten 6 to 6.5 on the open market, even though the flat cap is affecting the UFA market right now. But I think he easily would have been a day one UFA signing. I didn't even think he was going to come back at this point anyway. But, you have these players that they're taking these discounts to come back and help the Penguins, try to chase that one more championship for the Sidney Crosby era. That is massive. And the bottom six, I feel a lot better about it right now than I did. What time is it right now? 8:30. I'm recording this. I feel a heck of a lot better right now than I did 4, 5, 6 hours ago. That's for sure. We can do a little mini lineup right here. Say you got Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust, Jason Zucker, Evgeny Malkin, Rickard Rakell. Then on the third line, you can maybe have Danton Heinen, Jeff Carter, Kasperi Kapanen. I guess that's what they're going to go for right now. And then the fourth line, Ryan Poehling, Brock McGinn, Teddy Bluger. I think that's probably what we're looking at in terms of what the forward group will look like right now. Now, July 27th, still a long ways to go, but those are the lines that I think will be in play if training camp opens with these 12 forwards. I do not think Josh Archibald or anyone else that they signed to those two-way deals should have a place on this team, though. Drew O'Connor is going to be competing for that last spot. Radim Zohorna, and including Archibald, even though I don't think he should be on the team. But that's from a purely hockey standpoint. He is going to compete though for that spot. So you're basically going to have 4 to 5 players competing for that last spot. I do think Ryan Poehling, just because he's a former first-round pick, GMs love to take chances on those kind of players. I think at least right now he's going to win that battle. But when you look at that bottom six, is it great? No. Is it good? Maybe not. Is it passable? Yes. That is how much of a difference Dan Heinen makes. I said a couple weeks ago, the Penguins have yet to replace 38 to 40 goals. Now you get 18 of those back. Still maybe you have to replace 10 to 15, maybe upwards of 20 more. Rodriguez is still out there. Maybe you have a shot at bringing him back, but I think right now he probably wants more term in dollars. But this is a giant W, as the kids like to say, for general manager Ron Hextall. It's been, I'd say he's had more W's than L's this offseason, but Kapanen definitely put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. This one, though, just a great deal. Someone who you can rely on to score for you at 5v5, good playmaker, good in his defensive zone, can play on the top six at times with Evgeny Malkin, can play on the third line with Jeff Carter. You can honestly put him anywhere in the lineup and he will make a difference. So I honestly really was not expecting him back at this point. So some very good news with regards to that for the Penguins, and they're going to be better off with regards to Heinen playing on the team next year. That's for sure. What this means going forward, I still think there's a trade to be made. They have 9 defensemen going into the season. Now, I want to pull up something here that I'm trying to find out who tweeted this. Yeah, this is from one of the Penguins reporters. And this kind of also sums up how, I've been feeling too. And, again, I do think Hextall, he intends to move a salary before the season, but, even though they're over the cap right now, but I think Puckpedia had it as about $870K, upwards of $1 million. They can get rid of that by just sending a couple people down. I wouldn't want them to send down Ty Smith, but they could do that, send Drew O'Connor down, waive somebody like Archibald or Poehling if they had to, and they would be cap compliant. 12 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goalies. And that also includes them moving out a defenseman to get there. Of course, again, that's probably not what they would want to do, But I don't think they've backed themselves into a corner here. They can send a couple of players down that will clear them of their cap problems, and they can go into the season, under the cap, whether that's with 8 or 9 defensemen. Again, I do think there is at least one more move to be had here. I think a defenseman's going to go. I think a forward is going to come back. That's my current thinking. What you're seeing right now, I don't think is going to be the final roster going into camp. And finally, remember what Ron Hextall said a couple weeks ago? Yeah, man, I like the depth going into this season. If I were to do this right now, I'd be pretty thrilled about it. He's not going to tip his hand. See this. Dan Heinen, 1 year times $1 million. He wanted to bring him back. He knew probably that the forward group was not that good. He's just, not putting it out there to the media like Jim Rutherford did. And he went out and made the forward group a bit deeper. And, again, I don't think the work is done. I think they need to go out and get another forward, hopefully someone in the top 6 that could bump someone like Jason Zucker down. That would be awesome. Or if you want, you can go get another top 9 winger, put him on the third line, and then keep Zucker up there. Who knows? But, this move makes the Penguins a better, deeper team heading into the 2022-23 season. Big A+ in my book for Ron Hextall. So that wraps up this segment of the podcast. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to start getting into my top 10 prospects in the Penguin system. And then the third segment, I'll finish that off for you all. But before I get to that, let me get this right here. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. You can find your favorite sports and events at the #1 source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news on every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, etc. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. You can head to BetOnline today or use your phone to learn more about the trends in action. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @LNRSPenguins. So let us get into the top 10 prospects in the Penguin system. Note, I'm not going to count Drew O'Connor, Radim Zohorna, or Alex Nylander, and I'm also not going to count POJ either because he's on a one-way deal. He's probably going to be on the team this year. Maybe a little surprised if he got sent down, but I think he is going to be on the team in some capacity. But coming in at number 1, this should be no surprise to anyone, Owen Pickering. It's not even close. The skating that he has, the way he moves the puck up the ice, there's no other defenseman in the system that can do what he does. And from a pure talent standpoint, he has a lot more talent than any prospect in the system. You look at hockey prospecting and, the star probabilities, it's a little low for that, but, for NHL probabilities, it's, a little over 50%, couple comps there like SL and Dale, Carlo Koliakovo, et cetera. But, this is a player, he's a little bit raw in some areas, not as good offensively, but, you're starting to see, if you watch some of the video, that he's involving himself more in the offensive zone. He's activating himself below the goal line, which is something that, only really a few defensemen on this team do at this point. He's not going to be ready, I would say, for 3 to 4 to 5 years at this point, but, he has the potential, to be a top 4 defender on this team. He has skills that you can't teach, especially with that reach that he has. The skating is just so crisp, defending very strong in his own zone. And also has a nice shot too. So, if he can work a little more on his offensive game, I think he's going to be even better. So I do think a little more time for him to be polished up, but I do think he is by far the number 1 prospect in this system. Number 2, I would probably put Phillip Hollander. May sound a bit weird because Valtteri Pustinen's there, Sam Poulin, a couple others, but Hollander does have a good amount of talent. And I know his stats in Wilkes-Barre last year were not the greatest. 14 goals, 28 points in 61 games. Played a few games, at the NHL level. I think it was only a couple. But, I'm still very high on this player. You look at the data for him, and he still has around a 60% chance of being a full-time NHLer in his career. A couple comps for him, include Michael Dow Cole, Doug Waite, Mika Zibanejad, Evgeny Kuznetsov, even for the star probabilities. I don't think he's going to be that good, but, he's a good center, has a good shot, fast skater, good playmaker. He has all the tools that you would want to be a good center in the league. It's just, his full offensive game hasn't come out yet, at least down in Wilkes-Barre. I'm hoping to see him improve his numbers a little bit next year. But I do think in terms of raw talent, he is their number 2 prospect, in my opinion. I think after that, Sam Poulin, he was a bit lower on my list. If you were to ask me last year, he would probably have been down to like 5 or 6, but he had a really nice ending to his season in Wilkes-Barre. Finished with 16 goals, 37 points in 72 games, was, second on the team in scoring outside of Nylander and Valtteri Puustinen. Of course, they tied for the team league in points, but everyone's been wondering, where is Sam Poulin? When is he going to come up to be in NHL? Or, I don't think he's going to be a star in this league. I think the odds right now, when you look at hockey prospecting, about 40% chance that he makes it. But, there's, a couple decent comps in here. Michael Bunting, Brett Ritchie. There's also Bo Bennett in here, but, I think that's just because he got hurt way too often. But, Brett Ritchie and Michael Bunting, especially Bunting, he's been a pretty solid player, up in Toronto for those last couple of years. So, I think there's still a little bit of time for him. Again, I was a lot more sour on him, this time last year going into this past season than I am now. But, he's able to really rebound, get some of his game back, stayed a lot more healthier. And I think had a pretty good season down Wilkes-Barre. If he's able to, have like a nice red hot start to next season, would not be surprised if he's one of the first call-ups. I know he hasn't really made his NHL debut yet, but I think, I think that's going to be coming sooner rather than later. Number 4, I have Tristan Bras, someone who, decent goal scorer. He was picked, remember, last year in the second round. This was Hextall. Well, I think this was actually Hextall's first pick. And, he's still, a ways away, to be honest. But, there's some good comps for him too, like Mason Appleton, Matt Molson. He was a really good player back in the day. Andre Palat. He hasn't gotten to Wilkes-Barre yet. He's still in his junior league, but this is a player that, I think can really open up some eyeballs this year. He was definitely a project, a little more of a project, I should say, when he was taken. But, I think he's someone that, maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, if the development keeps going strong and he has some good couple years in Wilkes-Barre once he's able to come up, I do think that, he can potentially, make the team at some point. After that, I guess I would say Joel Blomqvist. He's a pretty decent goal. I mean, he's a fine goal. I remember when they traded the other goaltender in the trade for Rickard Rakell, and of course his name is just escaping me right now for whatever reason. I'm just gonna, Penguins trade. The fact that I don't even know that off the top of my head just goes to show how embarrassing this is. Callie Klang. I knew it started with a C, but that's just embarrassing. I apologize for that. So, they're kind of a wash if you ask me. But, Blomqvist, he had a pretty decent year in junior last year. I don't know if he'll ever make the NHL, but, in terms of the Penguins prospects, I would probably put him at number 5. And there's some full comps for him. Cam Ward, Corey Crawford, Jake Allen. Maybe he turns into one of those. Maybe he doesn't. But, pretty decent year in junior last year. And I think, if he keeps growing, we'll have to see, he comes up to, Wheeling, Wilkes-Barre and all that stuff. So that is the first half of my prospect rankings. Let me know what you all think in the comments. Did you like them? Did you not? I'll be doing the second half coming up right after this commercial break. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So after that, I would have Zamplont. And, he is, this is someone who, a very strong goal scorer. Remember, he models his game after Jake Gensel. He has a wonderful, and I mean a wonderful shot. And just look up the clips on YouTube. The way he's able to find like the softest parts in the offensive zone and just rips the puck past the goaltender. It's stuff you can't teach. And I wouldn't have him a little higher, but I want to see how he does next year in junior league. But I think he has a very strong potential here to be an impact player in the NHL. 57th percentile to be an NHLer according to Hockey Prospecting. A couple good comps in there, like Andrew Cogliano, Jordan Eberle, Brett Connolly. This is a player who I am very bullish on. That's for sure. After that, I would have Valtteri Puustinen at number 7. Last year, 20 goals, 42 points in 73 games. And yes, I don't have him in the no longer counts category because he really hasn't played in the NHL yet. He's only played one game at this point. But, his hockey sense seems to be off the charts. Good, responsible player in his own end. Good offensive player, too. I also think he's going to be one of their top call-ups this season if he does not make the team out of camp. A lot of people are waiting to see him get an actual sample size on the team. I know there's, a big logjam right now for him to pass some of these players. But I do think, again, I've said this a few times throughout the offseason of all the guys in Wilkes-Barre that have a chance to come up this season, I think outside of O'Connor and Zahorna, who are no longer prospects, I would have Puustinen right up there, in my opinion. After that, I would have Philip Lindbergh. Everyone thought, that he was going to challenge. I think Casey did. I shouldn't say everyone. I think some people thought that he was going to challenge the backup spot last season for Casey Smith because he had great numbers in the NCAA. But, start of this season, Wilkes-Barre was playing fine, but he just battled so many injury problems. I'm hoping that he can, rebound this year and not be banged up because, if he can, have some good numbers down there, there's the chance in the future that he could be up on the Penguins. But right now I have him a little further down on my top 10 list. I want to see what he can do when he is healthy, at least. Coming up at number 9, Nathan Lagaree just has not, people for a time, they had him, higher than Sam Poulin, but, he has, I hate to say, he just has not lived up to the expectations yet of being one of their top prospects. I'm trying to find his stats here in Wilkes-Barre. 57 games last season, 7 goals, 16 points. You look at his hockey prospecting chart and, the full comps there. I mean, Jason Ward, Phil Giuseppe, Ryan Hartman, Max Jones, just a couple others like Nick Spaulding, just not good enough for him yet. 2019 third round pick under Jim Rutherford. People have always said, you can put him in a trade and get a top winger. Again, I don't really know what team is taking him at this point. He has not worked out yet with the Penguins. Maybe he figures out this year like Sam Poulin did a little later on towards last year. But right now, just everything in his game, it's not, the greatest right now. And then finally at number 10, Lucas Shevkovsky, he improved a little bit. This past year, 2024 round pick under Jim Rutherford, his numbers, aren't super terrible. A couple good comps in there, like, Matthew Joseph, Brian Backel, Chris Wagner, excuse me, but, he's kind of just a fourth liner. I'm not really sure if he's ever going to make the NHL, but, I have him at the top 10 kind of just because I have to at this point. After that, you kind of start looking for other prospects, and, there's really not much there, though. The goalie they did take in this year's NHL draft, he had some very good stats, and I think he could potentially, upsurf Blomqvist as being the best goaltending prospect on the team. His projection right now is looking pretty good. It's actually looking a bit better than Blomqvist, but until we see him put up those numbers again for the next year or two, as a member, as a member of the Penguins, even though he's not on the team, he's playing with his junior league and all that. I'm going to be, I guess, a little bit more skeptical, to say the least. So that wraps up today's show. When I look at the top 10 Penguins prospects, let me know what you all think. Do you all agree with my list? Who should be higher? Who should be lower? Let me know in the comments or YouTube. Send me a DM on social media, all that stuff. So again, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. I really just enjoy everyone listening to the show, even though we're down to 3 days a week at this point. I'll be back with another episode on Friday. We'll have plenty more to discuss. We're getting closer to August. Things will probably go a little more dormant just because that's how it is. The dog days of summer right around the corner. But after that, training camp is in a couple weeks when September starts. And, we'll be back to 5 a week. And, the season will be coming up before you all know it. So, again, thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back with another show on Friday.